Super Mario in real life. Spaghetti!
Ah, Mario, the king of video games and one of the most iconic fictional characters of all time, right next to Mickey Mouse and Doshin the Giant. The Mario series has brought joy to millions of people since its very inception, and in some ways has even inspired people to create video games of their own. Mario has been running and jumping for over 30 years now, and he really means a lot to people, so why not take a look at some of his games and see how well they've aged throughout the years. So with all that said, let's take a look back at the game that started it all, Super Mario Bros. On the NES. The year was 1981, and a man by the name of Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to create an arcade game that would reach the success of games like Pac-Man and Galaga. The game Miyamoto would go on to create would be called Donkey Kong, a game that I am terrible at. Moving on. The character you controlled in Donkey Kong was named Mr. Video, but that was later changed to Jumpman. And that was eventually changed to Mario, based off of Nintendo of America's landlord at the time. Donkey Kong would go on to be a huge success, which prompted Miyamoto to want to create more video games starring Mario. 2 years later, Mario would star in a new game called Mario Bros., which I'm also terrible at. Oh, and also Mario's brother Luigi made his first appearance in this game, in case the plurality in the title didn't give that away. While Mario Bros. Did fairly well in the arcades, things weren't going so hot for video games as a whole at the time. The influx of video game consoles and the release of home computers, among other factors, caused video games to crash hard in the market, an event known as the video game crash of 1983. I mean, how could video games fail when 3D tic-tac-toe existed to boost Atari stocks tenfold? The dwindling video game industry helped to motivate Nintendo to push the Famicom even harder in the West under the name of the Nintendo Entertainment System. The decision to launch the NES in the West was met with large amounts of skepticism at the time. Many thought that releasing the system after the video game crash would be a death sentence for Nintendo. But Nintendo was pretty smart and marketed the system as more of a toy with a little accessory known as Rob the Robot. And at this point you might be thinking to yourself, but Sam, I wanted to hear you talk about Italians, not robots. Don't worry, I'm getting there. Don't worry about it. The NES would release in North America on October 18th, 1985, with 18 launch titles also being available for purchase at the same time, one of which being the widely acclaimed Super Mario Bros. Super Mario Bros. Was developed by Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka, with music also being composed by Koji Kondo. The game was designed to be a platformer with linear stage designs where players would run and jump throughout levels in order to reach a flagpole at the end and move on to the next level. This linear game design reflected on Miyamoto's decision to shift focus from high scores into actual gameplay, and it also was a complete contradiction to the other game Miyamoto was working on at the same time, The Legend of Zelda. But that's a story for another day. Similarly to the gameplay, the plot was also incredibly simple. The Princess of the Mushroom Kingdom, Princess Toadstool, aka Princess Peach, had been kidnapped by the villainous Bowser, a weird turtle dinosaur hybrid looking thing that wants to rule the kingdom with the aid of his army. Bowser turned all of the inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom into bricks, which is a detail exclusively found in the manual, I believe, prompting Mario to go save the princess and the rest of the kingdom. Obviously, Mario's plot isn't very deep, but I think for the first game it's fine to keep things simple. I mean, surely Nintendo won't reuse this plot for another Mario game, right? Right? They reuse this for every Mario game. One thing that was always weird to me was the detail of how the bricks you're breaking were actually people. It kinda paints a new light onto Mario after you play through the entire game, doesn't it? Like, Mario's the hero, right? But what could these malicious undertones truly and ultimately mean about this wholehearted series for children? While Super Mario Bros. Was designed with simplicity in mind, a lot of the decisions made with this game would largely innovate and rework how others viewed the platformer genre as a whole. Well, I think I've rambled on long enough, so let's actually dive into the game itself. Super Mario Bros. Has you playing as the titular Mario and Luigi as you jump through 32 levels and 8 different worlds that gradually get more difficult as you progress. I probably don't have to spend a lot of time explaining Mario's gameplay because it's probably common knowledge at this point. You move with the D-pad, you press B to jump, and you press A with a fire flower to commit arson. I guess that means we can talk about the power-ups now. In most stages, you can find some power-ups to give you an advantage in beating a level, such as the mushroom, the fire flower, and the star. I already talked about how the fire flower lets you shoot fireballs to commit arson with, but the mushroom grants Mario an extra hit while also making his hitbox bigger. Taking a hit with either of these though reduces Mario to a smaller form, so do try to be careful. The star grants Mario temporary invincibility while also playing a pretty snazzy tune. In fact, all of the music in this game is pretty fantastic and is aged beautifully. Koji Kondo's work on the Mario series is something spectacular and it's recognizable by pretty much anyone. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to find anyone who can't hum level 1-1's music or at the very least recognize where it's from. The game doesn't look half bad either for a game that was made in 1985. Everything's bright and colorful, and it just makes the game really nice to look at. It definitely uses the limited storage of the NES well. Mario games just seem to age like a fine wine compared to the games that came before and even some games after it. Yeah, that's right, f*** you 3D Tic-Tac-Toe. In Super Mario Bros., you'll go up against tons of enemies like Goombas, Koopas, the best Super Smash Bros. Character. This game really has it all. However, nothing can prepare you to go up against the dreaded Hammer Brothers with their annoying throwing patterns and the fact that they always come in pairs. In terms of Mario's actual control, he handles pretty well despite some jumps feeling a little stiff and with Mario being somewhat difficult to stop in a few instances. Mario also has underwater controls which make him floatier and slightly harder to control, but they honestly don't bother me that much. Throughout the game you can find little extras like 1-ups or my favorite cheating device, the warp pipe. Yeah, move over, Game Genie, this is what the real deviants use. You see, in most levels there are pipes placed throughout, and some can let you enter them to receive a goodie or a secret like coins. However, in certain stages, pipes can also serve as an alternate way to beat the level, with your reward allowing you to skip full worlds. To give you an idea of how good these pipes are, speedruns of this game clock in at about 5 minutes, with the use of some other techniques and exploits as well. These kind of bonuses don't seem that great nowadays, but it must have been so cool to find these as a kid before the internet existed. In fact, there's still a ton of things I learned about this game. For example, holding down the A button on the select screen after getting a game over brings you back to the start of the world you were on. I always thought that this game was way harder, but knowing that little secret now really makes it a lot easier. Too bad I still suck at the game though. It takes about 2 hours to beat the game, and it was a pretty comfortable ride for me. The game gradually scales in difficulty, but it never feels overly punishing. Yeah, World 8 can have some tight jumps, large amounts of enemies, levels that last longer than usual, barely any power-ups to assist you. I take it back, this game's putrid. But seriously, if you have enough patience, you can get through it just fine. I always thought that level 8-4 was a little annoying though. You have to figure out which pipe is correct, and some pipes boot you back to earlier areas of the level. Not to mention that they decided to throw in one more Hammer Brother right before Bowser, and if you die you gotta do the entire level again. Anyway, after enduring through World 8 and defeating Bowser, Princess Peach congratulates you and presents you with a new challenge. It's essentially a hard mode that replaces Goombas with Buzzy Beetles. It also gives you a level select too, which is pretty nice. Overall, I still find Super Mario Bros. To be a pretty fun game. It has its difficult moments, yeah, but I'm willing to overlook it for just how impressive a game like this has aged. This game came out over 30 years ago, and it's still just as charming, unique, and fun as it was back in 1985. It's so beloved and important that it's pretty much available on every other Nintendo console in some way after the NES. Despite this though, I don't think I'll come back to the original Mario for quite a while. It's a great game, yeah, but in terms of what comes after this, it just gets outshined in so many different ways. Super Mario Bros. Has sold over 40 million copies to this day, and is a large reason that video games still exist today after Atari shit the bed with Firefighter. This game put Nintendo on the map as one of the greatest video game companies of all time. That should tell you how important it is. Super Mario Bros. Is a very impactful game, and it has my respect for what it did for video games as a whole. Anyway, I believe I have a couple rounds of 3D Tic-Tac-Toe to play.